Okay, so this question is from the Wind Waker Unflooded Discord. It's from Seafarer, who says, I feel like this is something you've been asked before, but I couldn't find an answer in your older videos. But for the Q&A, how long is the distance between the flooded and unflooded sea levels in meters or feet? And what are your reasons for choosing that distance?
To answer your first question, 200 meters. To answer your second, because I wanted to. Next.
Got him. Sorry. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can get into that a little bit.
Correct, that 200 meter, is that like measured within the...
That's an approximation just based on average Blender units. And no, I just chose it just based on just like my own feeling of how deep things should be, because it is something that I do think it was hard to figure out. But I figured this out very early on, and I've showcased this in some videos, that the first thing I did when I started modeling this project was I made a very rough, low poly sculpt of the entire world, just like figuring out the ridges and valleys and just literally figuring out topography in a very rough sense, because I wanted to be able to answer that question of like, does it make sense if the mountains are this high? Does it make sense if the rivers go this deep? And just feeling confident that the general shape would work. I didn't want the land to feel too spiky. So that was very important to me to figure out early on. And yeah, I may not have like an exact metric on that, but it was just decided that like pretty early on that, I mean, I love the way that the terrain feels in games like Breath of the Wild, right? Where there's mountains all over the map, but it's not like, there's not like a huge gap of mountain to valley. It doesn't feel too spiky. And the Wind Waker, just the way the map is designed, there's a lot of islands, and if I made the average depth too deep, it would feel too, the terrain would not feel even enough. So it was definitely a balance to try to figure out what that sweet spot was, where you could have a lot of mountains, but also let it not feel too treacherous, right, in that sense. But so it was a tricky thing, but it is just all done artistically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and these next questions are coming from your YouTube comments, and this is from Warland Hero 6394, who asked, I think, a very important question, which was, how was your day? LOL.
My day's been lovely. I just went on a hike. My friend just moved into a new apartment, and I had a dip in his pool. It's a beautiful summer day. I'm doing well.
Excellent. This next question is from Arcus49, who asked, is Wind Waker your favorite Zelda game? ? Heart face emoji.
Yes. Next question.
Next question. This next one is from Jim O'Brien 3423, who says, what would you say is the most underrated Zelda item and why?
Ooh, the most underrated Zelda item. Underrated is a hard part, because they're great Zelda items, and I could talk about my favorites. Stuff like the bombs, stuff like hookshot. Like those are things that are regularly usable, even boomerangs, but like those are popular items. I know you don't care about that. I mean, Skyward Sword items get overlooked, and I think the beetle is overlooked. It's similar to the Hoi pair in Wind Waker, and using the beetle, it's just a little tiny. It's like a Peter Parker's little drone that he has in Spider-Man Homecoming, where like it detaches from him and like is a little thing that can fly around and survey the area. And so I think that little item, the beetle, is it's so useful for just like being able to explore the space, because you can't necessarily access the space early on in those early Skyward Sword dungeons. So just being able to have a quick aerial overview becomes pretty useful in those early dungeons.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great, and kind of leads to our next question from Snowob, who asked, what is your opinion on Skyward Sword's unique items? The beetle, the scatter shot, the gust bellows, and the whip.
I hate the beetle.
He actually hates it, folks. He was actually lying that whole time to you, and I do apologize.
No, I love Skyward Sword's unique items. I think the whip is a great kind of version of its own take on the grappling hook, which is why like I don't give it credit as a unique item. It's just a new version of the grappling hook. I'm sorry, guys. But I love the gust bellows. It feels like kind of a new version of like the shovel, which I think is I've been replaying a little bit of Oracle of Ages, and I've really been appreciating the shovel, because a lot of Zelda games don't have shovels. And it's just being able to, at any point, like dig up the grass. Because in Zelda, it's traditional that you can swipe the grass and maybe a ruby will come out. You break a pot, maybe you'll get some rubies or some bombs or some arrows. And the shovel just allows you to do that literally anywhere on the map. Instead of just looking for grass to cut, you just like hit the ground and see what comes out. And so I think the shovel is great, and the Gust Bellows does something similar, of course, when you can just kind of wipe away the sand and see what's underneath. So I like Skyward Sword. I fell in love with it after replaying the HD version, and maybe that'll be its own video later.
And maybe we all did, after that HD version, if I may. We've got a great couple of rapid fire questions from our good friend Virus Claxosaur 4054, who asked at first, what program do you use?
Blender.
Blender. All right. And the next one is, what's your process for how you choose what to work on next?
This is a great question. I choose what I want to prepare a good answer here. What informs my decision on what to work on next more than anything else are your comments. What you comment down below, the suggestions that you have, more than anything else, I read those and I try to, that directly affects my list of what are the next things I want to work on, especially when I see that y'all leave comments with all kinds of ideas, right? Because people will leave comments and they'll be like, Joe, I have a vision for this location. And when I read a comment like that, that's like, what if there was like this location and it was like this, and someone's just really going off about all that stuff, and they clearly just have a vision there. That is totally, that totally, what am I trying to say? That inspires me reading comments like that.
Awesome, yeah. And that kind of also leads maybe into the next question, which is like, how do you concept out the ideas and translate that to the project?
This is a great question. So sometimes, I'll do a quick drawing myself. Often it's just like I have such a clear vision of a location that I can usually just kind of think about how I want it to look. And if I've been thinking about it, then just when I start modeling, I can just kind of go from there. But with the Wind Waker Discord, I've been working with a lot of new artists that have been contributing concept art, and they're like, hey, Joe, we've been thinking about this location. Here's a way that it could look. Here's some concept art. And that's really made it helpful to be able to kind of help share a vision for the world. And that's affected the way I model, being able to use their concept art as a basis for the 3D modeling, which is just awesome that's true now. I love being able to have those kinds of contributions for the project. And it really, it's not just helpful to have contributions, but it's so encouraging to have people share a passion for the project and share ideas. And even just that constant communication really helps motivate the project and, encourage me to work on it.
All right, awesome. And then our final question from them is, will you stream and or record segments of the process for us wanting to see how you do it?
I appreciate this question. I would totally be interested in streaming the 3D modeling process live. It's just that I've had some issues before doing like software work and streaming it. A couple of years ago, I was in a class during the pandemic. It was a remote class, and it was a Pro Tools class on demo production. And for our final, what we had to do was do like a certain procedure in Pro Tools, screen record it, and be on Zoom with the class, with the teacher, streaming our work in the software. And my computer was chugging through that. It was so slow. And it's like, it sucked because I feel like I would have done better if my computer was running quick, if I didn't have to screen record it, if I didn't have to screen share it at the same time. So I do think, just like as far as that goes, I don't think my computer's good enough to do streaming as I'm 3D modeling. But it's not something I'm against philosophically. I don't think that's I don't want to slow down I don't want to slow down my computer enough to make that not worth it anymore, even though I want to be able to share the process with you. So I appreciate the question, but I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon.
Totally. And that's why, if I may, I recommend donating to the coffee or becoming a member on Patreon to help Joe get a non-crabby computer.
Yeah, I mean it, y'all. I mean it. Becoming a member on Patreon gives you exclusive access to all kinds of content. Become a member on Patreon to listen to my music as I compose it. I'm a composer, and you can also support me by listening to my music on Spotify. Look up JoeKendrick.
But anyway, Virus Claxosaur ends this off by saying, thanks either way for the cool ideas and awesome work you've done so far. So from us to you, Virus. Thank you. This next one is from That Stoked Gamer, another great name, by the way, who says, how experienced are you in Blender? How long have you been working with Blender?
Great question. Like I said, I really do feel like a beginner, and I feel like some of that beginner's ignorance is is what makes this project possible. I mean, I started learning it in 2019, the fall of 2019, so it's hardly been a couple years of learning Blender. I really do feel like a beginner, and you know, if you're watching the videos and you use Blender, feel free to comment down below any advice you have. If you see the way I'm working and you're like, oh, he could have done that so much easier. So I welcome any advice or feedback. But all this to say is, like, I do think I can offer artistic advice. But if you're a young 3D modeler, I would feel like I'd be the blind leading the blind if I were to actually do Blender tutorials or anything. So I still feel like such a beginner, and I'm excited to keep learning. And this project has empowered me to keep learning Blender. And already it's affected some of the other projects I've done. The modeling that I've been able to do for this project has made the car chase and Night Terror possible. It made me a lot more confident to be able to do other visual effects sequences. And so it's all my projects feed into each other for sure. And it's but I really do feel like such a beginner still.
Yeah. Awesome. And these next few questions are from Luxembourg Lover 69 on the Discord, who says, you've taken some liberties here. What is the thought process? What is the thought process behind that? And is there other media that inspires you?
This is a great question. Absolutely, because I guess I'd love to get into this question specifically. I don't know who asked this, but this is a really smart question. So thank you, Luxembourg Lover 69, for your very intelligent question. Because absolutely, and I get a lot of comments on YouTube, right, where people will see a location that I'm working on, and every now and then someone will comment, you know, Joe, this location has never been this way before. There's never been an opera house in Hyrule. There's never been a Shakespearean globe-like theater. There's no precedent for that. And people comment that. They're going, why would you do it this way? We've never seen this before. And it's and I totally get that mindset, right? We've seen Hyrule in different games. We've seen it look in, you know, various ways. But to me, it's like it seems so obvious that it's not about what we've actually seen, but it's about what we can imagine beyond the curtain. That's what this project is about imagining that world that we never got to see. So I don't want to only draw from things we've seen. I want to imagine what else could there be. You know, maybe we've seen Hyrule Castle Town in a couple of games, you know, and we've never seen an opera house or a theater or a museum. But like, those are things that would be in a city, and those are things that I want to add to the city. And it's not just from what's in the game, but you know, we've talked before about, like, this project is like it very much is my project because it's defined by my own experience and the things that inspire me and what I want to bring to Hyrule. And even though I want it to be true to lore, I want it to fit within the timeline. That's all stuff that matters to me. But it's also like, I want to bring the things that inspire me. I find the Wind Waker's art style and its original models so beautiful, and I want to add what I find beautiful in other areas of the world, of history, of architecture, and other cities I've been to across the world, and ancient ruins that I've seen, and these castles in Europe that all these things they affect this world, and I want to bring all of that beauty to this world as well. Anything you can imagine being in Hyrule, I'm not going to limit it just to things we've seen in games.
Totally, yeah. I know once, I think you mentioned to me, I don't know if you mentioned it in a video, being kind of inspired by, say, Michael for Hyrule Castle. And maybe you can kind of see that with the sort of circular area you've built around it. And it's almost tiered a little bit, right? The castle's above everything else. So totally, and I think that adds to the creativity for sure. And this other question from Luxembourg Lover 69 says, it took a long time for the project to get viewers. You know, what was that like?
That's another great question, because, you know, yeah, I was working on this project for.
Sorry, she kind of tried to interrupt the podcast. Please keep going, Joe.
Wow, what a beautiful creature. What was I talking about?
It took a long time for the project to get viewers. What was that like?
Yeah. I mean, I worked on this project for about a year or so before I even posted anything about it. And then I was posting for about a year before it actually got attention on social media and blew up on YouTube. I say it blew up. You know, I don't think it's gone viral, but I do say it's blown up. Those are the words I used. But yeah, I mean, it took a while, and I think just I'm used to that. I do a lot of projects where I'm used to not doing it for the views. I'm doing it because I just want to express myself. And I think it's something that, even though like it is tough to work on something and not get any kind of feedback on it, it's just something that I was used to. And it's like I was already just making it because it's something I wanted to make. And that's how I've been approaching my films for a long time. And it's I've always been making them with the desire for an audience in mind, but it's just I knew that I could be content making things because I wanted to see them, because I wanted to make them. And with this project, it was no different. Just for a while, it was like, I know I want to see this project get made, so I'm going to work on it. And I hope that it can find the community of people that also want to see it. But I was also like, I knew that I could be content with however long that takes. Just because I was already used to that. So I don't know, maybe that sounds a little sad, but it's just, you know, I make stuff with an audience in mind, but I know that I'm secure enough in what I create that I know if nothing else, it's okay to just be making it for me at first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm really happy that this did blow up because I like I've talked about I think earlier, like always had faith it would. I felt like it was the project you had that had the most virality, not just because it was really cool and unique, but also because it was attached to an existing franchise. And I think it's been great to see. I've seen people in the Discord kind of say like, "Oh, I checked out Star Boys or whatever," and like genuinely is really cool to see. And yeah, I think for like the key to creating and having that continued drive to creation is not just to make for other people, though you may, like you said, have an audience in mind. I think it's about I want to make something, and it is kind of for me as well. So yeah, just just great point all around. And I think I speak for Joe when I say like I just think we're all really happy that y'all are here, checking out the content.